Baruch Hashem, today's daf yomi is Menachos Tzadites, Menachos 99. Today's daf yomi, we're going to start on the daf yomi is not 99, the daf yomi is Menachos Kuf, Menachos 100. We're starting on the bottom of Tzadites, the bottom of 99b, where around 10 lines from the bottom, we're discussing the question of how do you fulfill the commandment or the verse from Joshua, which says, "Lo yamush sefer Torah zemipicha." You never allowed to stop studying Torah for a second. So what does this mean? So Shaul ben Dama ben Achosos Rabbi Shmuel as Rabbi Shmuel. So ben Dama, who is the son of the sister of Rabbi Shmuel, asked Rabbi Shmuel. He says, "Kugon ani, what about me?" Meaning, say you have to study. It says the Torah can never depart from your mouth. But what about me? Kugon ani. I've already learned the whole Torah. Can I now go and learn Greek wisdom? Greek wisdom can mean different things in the Talmud, so it's not 100% clear what it means. But it seems like he wants to know if he could study other things at this point, like Greek philosophy or Greek language, or something that's not Torah. So Karloff Mikra Zeh. So Rabbi Shmuel responded to him with this pasuk: you have to study Torah day and night. Okay, you're allowed to study the Chachma Yavanis, but you can only do it at a time where it's not day and not night. So, which means you have to study Torah. Don't study the Greek wisdom. So the Gemara says, he says, go and find the time it's not there in day or night. And that's when you could study it. Meaning, don't. But this argues with Rabbi Shmuel about Nachmani, this opinion about how we interpret this verse, that the Torah shall not depart from your mouth, that you always have to study Torah. So this argues with the position of Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, who says, the Amar Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rabbi Yonasan, pasuk zeh eno or chovav or mitzvah or bracha. This verse is not an obligation, and that's not telling you that this is what you should do, but it's a blessing. God is blessing Joshua. Ra Kadosh Baruch Hu Yoshua. God saw Joshua. Shedivrei Torah chavivim alav biyoter. He saw that how precious Torah was to him, as it says, "U'misharto Yoshua ben Nun nar lo yamish mitocha." Well, that Moses' assistant Joshua never departed from the tent. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. So God said to him, "Yoshua kol kach chavivim alav divrei Torah. You love Torah so much, or yamuch sefer Torah zemipicha. This Torah should not depart from your mouth." It's a bracha that God said to Joshua. The words of Torah should not be for you like a obligation, meaning to say, don't view like a debt that once you pay, okay, you went to the shir, I paid off my debt. No, that's not what it should be. And you can't say, okay, I did it, fulfill my obligation. It should be like a blessing. What do we do from the fact that the pasuk says in Job, so what did we do from this pasuk? Look, that God's attributes are not like man's. Midas basar adam, adam memes es chaver midar kachayim midar kemisa. The word mesis in the Torah is somebody who entices you or incites you to do something bad. So a regular person will incite his friend from the path of life to the path of death, or entice his friend. God will take you from the path of death to the path of life. And it says, what does that mean? He took you from the narrow place, from the Gehenim, who has a narrow mouth. Shasana Tibor Visocha, that it made a pile of that basically, why is its mouth narrow? So it was made narrow so that the ashes would not go spread out, so that they would get it. The Shema Tomar, unless you say, Unless you say Kishem Shapiatzar Kachkuatzar. Unless you say, okay, just like the mouth is narrow, also everything in it is narrow. And so therefore the wicked people can escape the wrath of Ganem. He made it deeper and wider. That if it was a Torah scholar who was separated from the Torah, Gehenna is not prepared for him. He won't be judged in it. Rashi says the Torah scholar is called a Melech. From that verse in Mishlei. So no, the verse says it is also prepared for the king. And then you say, and we say, okay, don't worry, I'll be free from the fires of Ganem because there's not enough wood. Don't worry, there's plenty of wood to make the fuel for the fire. Unless you say that this is the reward, that you're safe from Gehenim, but that's the only reward from Torah, is that you're safe from Gehenim. Tamomar, that your table will be malay dash, and your table will be filled with all the good things. Okay, so now says our Mishnah had said that if Yom Kippur came on Shabbos, you eat the lechem upon him that night. But if Yom Kippur came on Friday, and you eat the goat of Yom Kippur after Yom Kippur, but you can't cook it, so the Bavlayim would eat it raw. Who are these Bavlayim? They're not actually Bavlayim, Alexandrian. They were really from Alexandria in Egypt. We told Shasonin as Bavlayim because the rabbis hated the Babylonians. They were called the Babylonians. And why did they hate them? Tosfos says because they didn't come up from Babylon during the time of Ezra. That's why they were called Babylonians. So Rabbi Yehuda says, thank you. Basically, you should be at peace because you put my mind at peace. Now we go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Siddur es lachem b'Shabbos. Let's say you put the bread on the table on Shabbos. That's a bezikin la'achar Shabbos. But you put the bezikin, which is the spoons which have the frankincense in them, you put them on after Shabbos, meaning to say the bezikin was not put on at the proper time. Viktir as a bezikin b'Shabbos. And then you burn the bezikin the next Shabbos, which was too early. The bezikin were supposed to be there from one Shabbos to the next, but these ones went on late. So the bread is disqualified, and ein chayven alam mishum pigul noser v'tamei. Pigul this week's parsha. You're not going to be liable for pigul noser v'tamei because again, as you remember, you can only be liable for those prohibitions if the korban was done properly, and this korban was not done properly. Siddur es alachem, that's a bezikin b'Shabbos. Let's say you arranged the bread and the bezikin on Shabbos. As a bezikin la'achar Shabbos. So let's say you put the bread on properly with the bezikin, but then you burnt the bezikin too soon. You burnt them right on Sunday, but you didn't wait till the next Shabbos. Again, it's psuah ve'en chayav l'am mishum pigul noser v'tamei. Same law. It's disqualified. The bread is disqualified because the bezikin is the matir for the bread. Siddur es halachem, that's a bezikin la'achar Shabbos. Let's you put both the bread and the bezikin on after Sunday. Viktir, it's a bezikin b'Shabbos, and then you burnt the bezikin on Shabbos. Psuah, it's disqualified. Ketzad yasen, and what should you do? Yanichenu Shabbos haba. Leave it for the next Shabbos. Shafilu hi al shulchan yamim rabim ein b'kaklum, because even if it's on the table for many days, even if it will be on the table for many days, means that you're allowed to leave it on the table for more than the 9 days. So since you put it on only for the first time on Saturday night, you need to wait, or Sunday, you need to wait an extra Shabbos, and so that's not going to be a problem. Now the Gemara says, Tanan Hasam, we learned in the Mishnah in Yuma, Amar Mamuna, that the Mamuna, who's the one who's in charge of the base of Mikdash, he says, Turu and Megiyah's man shlita. He said on Yom Kippur morning, go and look to see if we can do the carbon tamid in the morning. Tuvuru and Megiyah's man shlita. In Megiyah, if the sun had risen, Aroa Omer Barkai. The one who's the lookout would say Barkai, which means the morning sun has risen. Matasia ben Shmuel Omer, hey, your when he was in charge, he would say, has the whole eastern horizon been illuminated? Until all the way until Chevron. Why did they have to go through this formal ceremony? One time the moon's light rose. Vidimu sha'eir mizrach, and they thought that they assumed that it was the sun. Shachatu as a tamin, and so they slaughtered the sheep for the carbon tamin. Rotziu a basis reif, and then they had to take it out and to the basis reif. They couldn't bring it as a carbon. Redu kohen gadol, and afterwards, after they did the shlita, they brought the kohen gadol down to the base of tefillah to the mikvah. Zeh kol yom b'mikdash. This is the general rule. Kohen meisach etzragov. Whoever goes to the bathroom time tefillah requires a full immersion. Whoever just urinates, don kiddush yadayim v'raglayim, requires washing hands and legs. And Tani Avua de Rabbi Avin, and this is the whole reason why we're citing this, because this statement is going to be challenged from our Mishnah. So the Avua de Rabbi Avin taught Lozu Bovad, not only this, meaning to say not only this had to be brought out, not only if the Tamid was slaughtered at night, by being slaughtered too early, they'd have to take it out to the base of Sreifa and get rid of it. Even a bird, an olas ha'of that was killed at night, umincha, and also even a mincha shenikmitza b'layla, or if you did a mitzvah mincha at night, take to the basis reifa. You have to take it out to the basis reifa. Why do they give these examples? Rashi says the olas ha'of was not a carbon choshev. It wasn't a distinguished offering, and so therefore it also, even if that was done at night, it has to be brought to the base of Sreifa. So Bishlam also of Misham Lo Efshar Dura. I understand why you have to take the also to the base of Sreifa, because you killed it. What are you going to do with it? El Mincha, but the carbon Mincha, why do you have to burn it if you did the Kamitza at night? Efshar the Mahader, it's disqualified at night. Just put the Kamitza back into the Mahader Kometz Duchte. Put the Kamitza back into the pile of flour. The comments be a mama and do the kmitza the next day. So hutani la v'lamar. So Rabbi Avin thought about this. Klisheres mekachin shalom bezman. So even though you can't bring it at night, since it went into the vessel of the temple is able to sanctify something, even though it wasn't night. So even though it was night, so even though night is not the time to sanctify it, nevertheless, since it was in the utensil, it was sanctified, and now we can't put it back with the shirayim, because this was a kometz, and you can't mix the kometz with the shirayim. So now the Gemara is going to challenge this idea. Meisher, we challenge this idea that the kli sharetz is mekadshin shelo bezman, and that the utensil sanctifies even when you can't bring the carbon, even at night. So we challenge this from a brisa, meisvei ko akarev biyom, kadesh biyom. By the way, Jeff, I know we had switched to decaf, but this is caffeinated because they didn't sell decaf at Costco. So, but it's just that I just put in a little amount. Till the next one, I was looking. What? Yeah, because I put in less. Yeah, I mean, sorry. I'm just looking. I mean, what do you want me to do when they don't sell decaf at Costco? It's such a strange world. Okay. Meisvei ko akarev biyom, kadosh biyom. So any carbon that's brought during the day, kadosh, is going to be, has a kedusha saguf if you put it in the utensil during the day. So if there's a carbon that's being brought that day and you sanctified it that day, it's kadosh. Balayla Any garment that's being brought at night, if you put in the klisharis at night, it's going to be sanctified. What's an example of a garment that can be brought at night? Right? Says the minchas nistachim, the accompanying flour and oil to accompany an animal offering, which we learned about in our tractate. So that can be brought at night. So kol akar b'yom kodesh b'yom, b'layla kodesh b'layla. Bein b'yom bein b'layla, anything that can be brought both at day or at night. Well, there's a different gears about this, but kol akar b'yom kodesh b'yom, b'layla kodesh bein b'yom bein b'layla. So that's how the Hagos here changes it. Kodesh bein b'yom bein b'layla. It was always sanctified. So now the Gemara challenges kol akar b'yom kodesh b'yom. Anything that can be brought during the day is sanctified only during the day. B'yom in b'layla lo. So doesn't that mean that it can only be sanctified during the day, but not at night? So if that's the case, if the mincha with the kamitza was done on it at night, why is it sanctified? Why can't you put it back? It's not sanctified because the mincha is supposed to be brought during the day, so you should be able to put it back. So the Gemara says, Gemara answers this question by saying, "Inu kadosh l'karev of a kadosh l'pasal." It's not sanctified to be able to be brought, but it is able to be disqualified. So if it was left overnight, so therefore it will become disqualified. Most of Rabbi Zera, so Rabbi Zera challenges him from our Mishnah. Let's say you arrange the bread and the zikin, but you only did it after Shabbos. And then you burned them on Shabbos. Psula. Then it's disqualified. Ketza Yasa, what should you do? Yanichana Shabbos, wait for the next week. Shafil al Shochan Yamim, meaning wait an extra Shabbos. Shafil al Shochan Yamim, even if it's on the table many days, there's no problem. If you want to say the Klishares is sanctifies it, even though it's not the time yet to be brought, with Kaddish Philipsol, then it should be disqualified through Lina. With Kaddish on the first Shabbos, and then when the next Sunday comes, it should be disqualified. Because it's been more than 8 days. Amarava Mandaka Mosiv Shapir Kamosiv. Yeah, that's a good question from our Mishnah. But Avud Rabbi Nassan, now he must need to come up. Avud Rabbi Nassan had his own brisa. What does the brisa say? Kasavar Laila Emachosers Man. He says nighttime is not going to be considered like it's not the appropriate time because the night follows the day. And so therefore Rashi says the Klisharis is going to be Mekadesh, the Komets. So therefore, since the night is since the night is the beginning of the day and they're one, and so therefore if he puts the Komets in the Klisharis at night, Komets is sanctified, but it's going to be disqualified because since it's a service at night, it's not kosher. The Gemara says Hayamim, but if you put it in several days, Mechusarin Zman. And so there, if you put it in several days before and during the day, it will be considered Mechusar Zman. And so therefore, Lachem Apanim that was arranged for several days before the proper time is not disqualified. Because there it is Mechusar Zman, it's not Mechusar Zman. Night is not Mechusar Zman, but day is. So the Gemara says, well, still in the end, since the time to put the Lachem Apanim is on Shabbos, Kimati Leila, even if you put it in several days, Kimati Leila, the Beis Shimshal, it should be disqualified. So Amarava, Beshakadim V'Silak. Now we're talking about cases, if you put it in a few days before, and it wouldn't be disqualified if you went and removed it the night before. No, it's even possible where you didn't remove it. Even the cedar shalok mitzvah. But since you started off by putting it in the wrong way, it's like a monkey did it, and you can't fix it. Once it was done the wrong way at the beginning, it can't be fixed. Now up to the next Mishnah. Ein pachos mishnayim. So we already learned them back on Sadi Hayam base that the 2 loaves of bread on Shavuos and the lechem apanim, neither one could be baked on Shabbos or Yom Tov. So I bake it on Shabbos or Yontif. So shtei lachem neachos im pachos mishnayim v'lo yoser al shosha. The shtei lachem has to be in a minimum of 2 days, i.e., the day it's baked, and then the next day, which is Shavuos, and never more than 3. In case the day before Yontif was Shabbos, and so therefore you have to bake it a day earlier. Okay, it said nefos me'er Yontif, so you bake it on the eve of Yontif. Nechalos. Hold on 1 second. What's the reason why you can't bake the 2 loaves of bread on Shavuos? It's because you can't eat them right away because you have to wait for the sheep to be slaughtered. So since it's not able to be in right away, even though it's in the same day, therefore you can't bake it on Yontif. So, but you can't bake it for more than 3 days. Ketza nefos me'er Yontif is baked on the eve of Shavuos nechalos b'yom tov l'shnayim. Then it's eaten on Yontif for 2 days. Chal Yontif liosachar Shabbos. If Yontif is on a Sunday, nechalos l'shosha. Then you have to bake it on Friday, and it's eaten on Sunday, which is the 3rd day. Upon him, the bread, which goes on the table every Shabbos, the 12 loaves, nechol in pachos mitisha. The minimum is 9 days. You bake it on a Friday, put it on the table on Saturday, and eat it the next Shabbos. That's 9 days. Lo yoter, but never in pachos mitisha. The lo yoter or achadasar, never more than 11. Keitza nefa me'erav Shabbos and necha b'Shabbos latisha. If it's regularly, it's 9 days. Chal Yom Tov Yoser Shabbos. If Yom Tov is on a Friday, then Necho Asar. Then it's eaten. Then you bake it on Thursday. It's eaten on the 10th day. Chal Yom Tov Yoser Shabbos. Necho Asar. Shnei Yomim Tov Rosh Hashanah. But let's say you have the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Thursday and Friday is Rosh Hashanah, so you have to bake it on a Wednesday. Necho Achad Asar. It's baked for 11 days. Veinu Docho As Shabbos Os Yom Tov. And the lechem upon him you can't bake on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer. Rabbi Shimon Ben Askan. Dochas Yom Tov and Dochas Yom Tzom. It does push off Yom Tiv, but it does not push off Yom Kippur. Amar Avinu, Divrei Omer Nedarim Unedavos, according to the one who says that you can't ain't craven b'Yom Tov, that you can't bring. We're going to Masachas Peitzah. You know how to bring a voluntary vow on Yom Tiv. What's the concern? The Gazru Shalo Yisha, because we're concerned that you're going to delay your karbanos the whole year until the Yom Tiv, and then he's leaving his work until the festival. And also another concern is that maybe he's going to be violating Baal Ta'achar. They know how to delay your vows. So we don't allow you to bring the vows on Yom Tiv. You say you have to bring it, not on Yom Tiv, so you'll bring it earlier. So don't say, biblically speaking, it's actually okay to bring a neder and tavayan. The Rabbanu Hudagadr, the rabbis made a decree because they didn't want you to delay your offerings until then. But actually, biblically speaking, you also can't bring it on Yom because the 2 loaves of bread, the chovos hayomu, which is an obligation of Shavuos. And we're not concerned that you're going to wait because that's the exact time where you have to bring it. And so still you can't bring the 2 loaves of bread on Shavuos. So we see from here that biblically speaking, you don't bring the 2 loaves of bread on Shavuos, and for sure you shouldn't bring the voluntary vows. What? Well, you can't bake them. You can't bake them, right? We'll return to you the 2 loaves. So now we start the next chapter. Menachos, Anisachim, Shenitmeu, Archelo Kitshu, Bekli. Let's say the Karban Minchos or the Nesachim, they became Tamei before they were put into the utensil, meaning to say You said, I'm going to bring this as a korban mincha, this flour, and then it became tamei. So Rashi clarifies for us, they don't have what's called kedushas aguf. They're not inherently holy. They have the value is holy. So therefore, you need to redeem them and need to place money for them, and then the money becomes holy. Before they are put in the utensil, once they put into klisheres, then they have what's called kedusha saguf. They're inherently holy, and they lamb pigeon. You can't redeem them. Aofos va'etzim va'lavona v'klisheres, the birds, the wood, the lavona, and a utensil mishenitmu. Once it became tummy, lamb pigeon. They can't be redeemed. Shalonem are pigeon. Because when do we say a pigeon that if something is inherently holy, it can be redeemed? Only by an animal that has a blemish. So Ella never pigeon Elba Behema, because the only redemption is by an animal. The only thing that has Kedusha Saguf that can be redeemed is an animal that has a blemish. Amar Shmuel Bafil Ein Torin, if then Shmuel says even these Menachos and Nitzachim, if they're not yet tamei, if they're just kedushas damim, they can be redeemed. My tama delakachi bekui kedushas damim ninu. As long as they're not in the utensil, it's called a sanctity of money. The kedushas damim niftin, and if something just has a monetary value, it can be redeemed. The Gemara says, nitmu tanam, but doesn't our Mishnah say that only when they're tamei can they be redeemed? The Gemara says, yeah, what that means is really, even if they're not tamei, they can be redeemed. But I did it misna seifa, but because we want to learn the second clause of the Mishnah, that once they're sanctified, they can't be redeemed. That even if they're tamei, they can't be redeemed. Unlike an animal which has a blemish, which can be redeemed, even though it's kedushas aguf, the menachos that are tamei cannot be redeemed. So therefore, Tani Nami Reisha Shenit Moachal Kitchabakui. So the Gemara says, obviously they can't be redeemed. Pshita Kedushas Agilfninu. Obviously they can't be redeemed once they're tamei. They're inherently holy. The Gemara says, no, Itzrach Sakadaita Chamina. You might have thought, oh, Baal Mum Ikri Tamei. Since an animal with a blemish is called tamei, and therefore you might have thought Tamei Nami Kabal Mum Dami. That if the mincha is tamei, that it's like an animal with a blemish, and even though it's kedusha saguf, you can redeem it. Kedusha, the kedusha saguf, kinafal beimum mifrach, and just like an animal that has a blemish, even though it's kedusha saguf, if it has a blemish, it can be redeemed. Hani nami lifrach. I might have thought that this menachos that are tamei could also be redeemed. Kamashmo and the lavki aitam karach mano ba'amum. That this is, so we learn from here that this tumah of Menachos Nisachim is not going to be considered the same tumah that it says by the Baal Mum that you could redeem it. And the Torah was not telling us by the Kodshim that you could redeem the mincha if it's tamei. The mikli sharetz go ashkon the mifrach, because we never find Kodshim that can be redeemed after they were sanctifying the kli sharetz. And even an animal which you could redeem it if it has a blemish, that's not after it was placed in the kli sharetz, because once it had that level of holiness, you can't redeem it anymore. So tomorrow's daf we'll see where the Baal Mum called tamei. We'll stop here. Baruch Hashem.